So I've basically got a policy that says allow inbound from the IT computers on 3389, and I'm just going to permit it. This means my IT team can continue to manage. So very easy policy to put in place. It should be very simple. So the next thing we want to do is look at the servers as well. Now, we have a bunch of policies in community here, but if you remember last week, I think we talked a little bit, I'm trying to remember where we got to, about simulating denies on your network. Now, if you were to go into your service group here, so if we go back to network control, and we pick our service group, we can see a list of policies. Now, if I was to delete all of these policies, so right now I have a denial inbound and denial outbound. So if I was to just to literally turn all of these off and have nothing, or just have my permit policies, what I could now do is what's going to happen is I've got a policy that says permit outbound, which is definitely don't want to do on our server, so I'm going to turn that one off. I'm going to permit common file server ports inbound. So what I've done here is I've set up a port policy to say, hey, I know this is a file server. These are the file server ports, and I'll show you how to get them community. And I'm allowing anyone in the organization. So if someone comes in with a home laptop, someone brings their own Mac in, let's just keep beating up on Macs today. So, and they try.
Sorry.
Actually, I remember doing a ransomware recovery for a school, and it was a teacher who bought their own Mac in because they didn't want to be restricted by Windows. And they did remote encryption onto the file server. That doesn't mean all Macs have ransomware. But if someone brings their own Mac in or something like that, they can connect to the same network. They won't be able to connect to the SMB port. So I've just said this one object, which is my organization, essentially. I've allowed the port. So I've gone through and I've created what ports I think I need to create. I've created inbound ports. I've got a policy here, which I'm going to, and I'll explain that in a moment. Allow RDP. So I've said allow RDP. Again, I've said this just from the developers' computers, but I could say IT computers if I pick my object. Click add there. So I've got I'll get rid of developers because we don't want them RDP into our servers. And you'll notice I've created another rule here. I realized, hey, I've got a scanner, and the scanner sends to my email server. So I want to allow, what I've done is I've basically said allow port 25 from this IP address, which is the IP address of my scanner. So I've gone through and created policies, and then I've got Active Directory. And this is one you don't want to forget. So Active Directory, again, I've only allowed my corporation to add these ports. And I'm going to add one more here, which isn't in here. If I go into network control, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to allow DNS. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I'm not going to do this from any sources. So what I'm essentially going to say is all computers can access DNS, regardless to whether they're trusted computers or not. And the reason I'm doing this is because if you have someone come onto their network with a phone, you want them to be able to get out to the internet. They need to resolve to the DNS server. I also want to make sure that when a user connects, they can get onto the internet, they can check into ThreatLocker, and they can respond appropriately when somebody says, hey, are you allowed? So DNS, we're going to say allow all inbound. The source is all. Again, if it's a private DNS server, we can always go and use, hey, just in case I open this up to the internet by mistake, I'm going to limit this to private IP address ranges. I'm going to say port DNS 53, click add, and I'm going to say permit. So now essentially what I've got is what I think is all of my server policies that I need. Now, you know I'm wrong.
Some things could break, but as long as we're simulating those denies, we can kind of see everything that's going on, right? So,
and that's the point. So essentially the state of this now is we have permit policies on these, which means if this comes back with permit, even if you got it denied on the Windows firewall, it's going to overwrite that and it's going to say this is a permitted action. If we had no policies, it's going to default back to the Windows firewall. So when you go into the unified audit here, you can actually do the same thing we did the other day, but we're going to say simulate denies. I'm going to have no traffic here. I'm going to say network, and I'll be able to see all of our denies on the unified audit there, and I can make any exceptions. I wish I had a deny. Let me not say simulate denies. Let me just say denies, because I had a policy in place blocking. Action type network. These are all outbound. Okay, so here I'm going to actually filter for inbound. Network direction equals inbound. There you go. I've got one. 137. So I could say here, oops, I forgot about 137. This is actually a workstation. And then I could just say, hey, I want to create a new policy for that. Permit 137. And then I'm going to say, it's automatically filled in the source because it sees the IP address. But I'm going to say, hey, I'm just going to use this as my trusted objects and say Colchi. And then essentially permit that. So if I forget something, I can see it. I can just create a policy on the fly.